Hi everybody, Ella here from All Writers Welcome. Here to write about, here to write about here to talk about writing through your fears, and and I'm an hour late, so if one of your fears is not being perfect, because I accidentally did this Facebook Live in the wrong Facebook group, so I'm like, oh, then click, and then I was like, wait a minute, wait. Oh shoot, wrong Facebook group. So here I am, an hour late, but figured I'll do it for you all anyway. To get on with the topic of writing through your fears, and I just want to acknowledge first that you are super duper duper brave. Writing is not easy, and can be extremely scary. The thing about fear and the thing about writing is, you guys, writing takes creativity. Writing is something that you're creating from nothing, creating from nothing in your heart. And shoot, you know, the second time you do something, it's never as good as the first time. Hold on. Okay. So I'm a little bit nervous right now, but I'm going to do this anyways. So we are talking about writing through your fears and how fears show up when you're writing. And the first thing I want to talk about regarding fears and writing is that fears show up mostly when you're doing something that's really important to you, right? So if you don't have fears about something unless, well, there's a couple of reasons, but in terms of creativity fears, they show up when there's something that it's important for you to be doing. Okay. So I'm not talking about like you're afraid of being mugged or something, but I'm like, if you have something that you want to be doing creatively, the more fearful you are, the chances are, or the more scared or nervous or insecure or whatever that is, if you're not fearful, you know, it could be a different word for you, or maybe you don't want to admit to being afraid. That's okay. But whatever that is, fear and nervousness and all those things show up mostly in response to that thing being really important for you. That thing being whatever it is that your heart wants to create. So I don't get scared when I go to make cookies, because that's not the thing that, one, I've done it a bunch of times before, but it's also not the thing that resonates with my heart, I'm like, oh no. And creating cookies, that's a creative thing. And I don't get scared when I go to quilt, because quilting, it just feels like crafting to me. Maybe some of you are crafters and you don't have this big fear around crafting. But writing, if you have any fears around writing, I'm reframing this fear for you. I'm reframing the fear as from being something bad to being something good. If the more afraid you are when you're doing something creative, it's usually an indication that this is the thing that you should be doing. Because when you're afraid about something, it's the thing that's most important to you. It's the thing that's really important to you and makes you feel really vulnerable. And usually the more afraid you are about doing something and other people's responses to what you're doing, it's because that is your gift. Your gift, your thing that you were supposed to do in the world, the thing you were supposed to share with everybody. And so so when you get afraid, instead of just living in that fear, instead of living in the fear, you can actually, if you can take a step back and reframe it and say, hey, the reason I'm afraid is because this is something that's really important to me. I use fear actually to make decisions about like things in my life. So I was like, I should start a t-shirt company. I should make t-shirts. And I had no fear around making t-shirts and starting a t-shirt company when I wanted to start my own creative business. No fear around it. I'm like, I'm going to start a t-shirt company. No fear around that. And then I'm like, oh, I want to help people with their writing. And I'm like, fear. Which now, and then I take a step back and I'm like, okay, That's really scary for me. That's probably an indication that that's what I really should be doing. You can use your fear almost like a compass. Like, is this scary? Is this really scary? Then that's the direction you need to be going in. I want to acknowledge how fear shows up. Like, maybe you don't feel like, well, I'm not scared. Or maybe it's really subconscious. Like, I definitely have that. And so how might it show up when you don't even realize it? Well, fear can show up as resistance. It could show up as you being like, I don't really want to do this, or I don't have time to do this, or I have to do all my chores before I can do this. And for whatever reason, you keep finding reasons why you can't do the thing that you know you should be doing. Okay, so that's resistance. You're like, I have too much to do, or I'm just not in the mood, or I'm not motivated. And you know what you need to do is just sit down and start writing. But you don't, because you're like, I've got so much other stuff to do. I don't know if I have time. That's how fear can show up. Another way that fear can show up, and I'm not saying that every time this happens it's because you're afraid. I'm just saying this is one of the ways that it can show up, is writer's block. You know, when you're not actually sitting down to do the work, you can have a million ideas. You're like, I have so many ideas for writing. It's like this. What should I write about? And then you sit down and you can't think of a single word. And you're like, shoot, blank. What's happening? Well, that's one of the ways that fear can be like a barrier to you in your writing. Another way that fear shows up is when you start comparing yourself with other writers. You're like, oh, I'll never be good enough. That person's so good. And I'm, how am my writing doesn't look anything like theirs. And I really like it. And you start comparing yourself and putting yourself down. That's one of the ways that fears can stop you. Like, fears show up in your life. So for me, now I'm going to go along with that. Oh, not good enough. Not good enough. That feeling of not good enough is a really, really common fear. It's definitely one of mine. Okay, you guys. And that not good enough can show up in so many ways. And when you're doing something that's close to your heart, the fears that come up sometimes will have nothing logically to do with what it is that you actually want to do. Like for me, I want to help you guys, writers, to be successful and to accomplish your dreams. That is, to me, this is my passion, is helping you guys to achieve your dreams of being successful writers. It's super duper scary for me, and I'm constantly having to go through my not enough, like I'm not good enough fears to be doing this. I'm telling you, even right now, I'm feeling very vulnerable. And the things that come up for me aren't things that have anything to do with writing. Okay, so not good enough can show up as not pretty enough. Okay, so it might show up as, for me, it shows up as I don't have good skin. Like I have acne. I have acne still, and I'm here on a Facebook Live video, and part of me in the back of my head is saying, you have acne, you're not good enough to be helping people with their marketing. Like, I'm laughing because I'm like, nervous laughter. Another part of me is I'm a little bit overweight right now. And so part of me is like, you can't help people with their marketing and their mindset. You can't help people because you're overweight. I mean, here you are doing Facebook Lives, and you have to be, in the back of my mind is like, don't go like this. Don't go like this so people see your chin. And these are the fears that come up in response to me doing what I dream of, because that dream is what's important to me. So these are my not good enoughs. They have to do mostly with physicality. Those are my not good enoughs. I think a lot of women have some of those. But your not good enoughs, or will show, your fears will manifest your not good enoughs, whatever they are. Like, whatever they are for you. Like, I have go-to ones, which are my skin and weight. My go-to ones. And whatever yours are, like maybe you have something with your teeth, or maybe you have something with your hair, or whatever it is, or maybe you have something that's completely not physical. But you have those go-to not good enoughs, and your fear will bring those right to the surface when you start trying to do what you what you love, what your compass says go this way, and you have to go straight through those fears, and those fears will show up. Does the way my skin look have anything to do with my ability to help you guys with your marketing? No. And does your weight have anything to do with your ability to write? Like logically, you're like, no, it doesn't have anything to do with that. Like my writing has no, like the way I weigh, how I look has no impact on my ability to write, because it's brain versus body. Like it's obviously not connected. But when you're doing something that's important to you and is scary, those kind of crazy things come up. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with these fears? How do you move forward in spite of them? Well, I want to acknowledge a couple of things. First, be very gentle with yourself. Okay? So imagine that there's a little kid who really wanted to write their first book. Like they're like 7 and they're like, I'm writing a book. and they're a little bit nervous because their handwriting isn't very good. Now, would you be like, you little kid? Would you say to them some of the things like, you're too overweight to write your book? No. You would be so gentle. You'd be like, it's okay. You're still learning. You're still doing it. And that kind of gentleness and compassion and love is exactly what you need to give yourself when you're doing this new thing. You would never be so harsh on somebody, for a little kid, for going after their dreams and starting something new. And you wouldn't be like, little kid, Susie is so much better at writing. You should never try to write. You would never say that. And so when you're looking at yourself and you're like, shoot, I'm really scared, just be really gentle. Be very gentle. And because what happens is a lot of us, especially women, will be like, I'm scared. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be scared. This is so dumb. Why am I even scared? It has nothing to do with it. And then you're like, and you start being critical of yourself for being critical of yourself. And you go into this downward spiral. And I want you to stop the spiral and say, like, you know what? Nope. I'm going to be gentle with myself. I'm going to forgive myself for my fears. And I'm going to keep moving forward. And sometimes that keep moving forward shows up as, so I'm going to tell you an analogy a good friend taught me, and I use it all the time. So let's say you're over here and you are starting to write your book, and over here is publishing your book, okay? And you have this journey where you're taking steps to get from one to the other. Now, I want to say, lots of people say, just keep moving forward. And yes, just keep moving forward. But sometimes you go a little ways, and then you take a couple steps back, and then you go a little more, and then you take a couple back. And I want to acknowledge that that's okay. And a friend of mine gave me this beautiful, way of looking at things. So he says, if you're standing on the edge of a large puddle, like a 3 or 4 foot puddle, okay, and you want to get over the puddle without getting wet, do you just stand? Here's the puddle. Here's the puddle. You just stand on the end of the puddle and just jump? Or do you take a couple steps back and get a running start to get over the puddle? You take a couple steps back. And so sometimes when you're on this journey from starting your book to publishing, you will take some steps forward, and then there will be some kind of obstacle, and you'll take a couple steps back and then run forward. So if you're like, I was doing so good last week, and now this week, nothing's coming out, and I'm just frustrated and I should just quit. No, just acknowledge that you're doing something new. There's going to be obstacles, and you may have to take a couple steps back before making a running start and leaping over that obstacle, leaping over that puddle. Okay? So within that context. So how do you start that journey? How do you make sure that you keep moving forward? And I have a couple of people who have told me, or I've looked at or researched, not research, I'm just, here's how a couple of people have done it. So Elizabeth Gilbert, in her book, Big Magic, she says with her fear, she knows fear is along for the ride. Like she knows fear is coming with her. She doesn't do the walking. She's driving. She's driving on her journey. She's like, fear is with me and I can't get rid of fear. Like the fear isn't going away, but what I can do is on this journey of creativity and writing, I put fear in the back seat and I tell him, you don't get to say any, you don't get to make any decisions about where we're going. You're here. I acknowledge you're here and you're here for the ride, but you're in the back seat and you have no say about where this journey is taking us. And I love that so much. I was like, oh, because it's not a matter of overcoming your fears, like fear, poo, poo, you know, or kill, you know, like the fear is there. You don't have to get rid of the fear. Like take that pressure off. Like I'm afraid, so I can't do it. You're going to have fear when you're doing something important to you, but you can put fear in the back seat and not let them have any say about which way you're going. I asked my sister how she deals with her fear because she's been doing this way longer than I have. And I was like, honestly, I was like, so how do you do these things that are important to you even when you're afraid? And she said, well, the fear is there and I just like see it out of the corner of my eye and just keep moving forward. So instead of looking at the fear and like focusing on it and me making it this big thing, she puts it in the corner of her eye, focuses on what she needs to do, and just like keeps going. The way I now do things when I'm scared, like right now, you know, like right now, right this very second, you guys, right this very second, I'm an hour late because I did it in the wrong group. I have my acne. My hair's kind of crazy. Okay. What I do is I put blinders on, like those horses that get afraid of stuff on the streets. I put those things on my eyes and then I look and then I take baby steps and I only look at the next step. I'm like, I know you're there, fear. I know there are things to be scared about, but I'm not looking out into the future about what if nobody loves my book? Or I'm not looking out into the future like, what if nobody likes my videos? I just say, okay, right now you're doing a Facebook Live. If nobody shows up, nobody shows up. You're going to do your best to help people and take that tiny baby step, which is the next 10 minutes of Facebook Live. And that's it. I'm like, I'm doing that one thing. And then after that, I do the next little thing. And I'm like, I'm not looking. I don't see you. That's how I do it by focusing on I'm like, I can do this one Facebook Live. I can do this one paragraph. And I don't think about the big picture. I just do the tiniest little baby step. And that's how I move through my fears. But they're still there. They're still there, you know, like they're still there. Please. Oh, I have a new fear of having that be the thing that Facebook screenshots me and my double chin. The other thing that you can do is realize that you are not alone. Okay. So I want to invite everybody, if you have some questions, I want to invite everybody to share how they work through their fears in the chat, or even share if you have some fears. Because I know when we don't talk about fear very much. We don't talk about being afraid. We don't talk about, because it's so vulnerable. We don't talk about it. And you don't have to share what your fear is, but you can go ahead and share, like, yeah, there's been times that I've been scared. There's times that I'm scared about my writing. And you can share that, yes, you have had that happen. And there's something about not feeling alone, because it's so easy yourself when you're like, well, I'm super scared, but look at how awesome they're doing. They must not be. And that's not how it is. Everybody has fears sometimes. And so if you want to go ahead and share, like I've been afraid. And if you have some resources about how you have dealt with your fears in the past, what do you guys do to deal with your fears around writing? What do you do to keep moving forward? And for those of you who are like, well, I don't have anything like that, think about something else in your life, maybe where you were afraid and you just moved forward in spite of it anyway. And because for me, it's the blinders. But if you have something else that you have done, go ahead and appropriate that for your writing. You're like, well, I remember that one time when I first wanted to host a party at my house. I was really, really scared, but what did I do? And look at what you did that worked. And then see if you can use that when it comes to your writing. Well, I know there's been some people who message me that they are nervous, and so I just want to let them know that 1, they're not alone. 2, it's completely natural. And 3, I'm just going to say this, even though you may feel like you're not good enough, just like I do sometimes, and I think we all do, you are absolutely good enough. You are absolutely good enough. And we all want your gift to be out in the world. We all want to see what special thing that you have created. And yeah, it's freaking scary. It is so terrifying sometimes, and that's okay. Be gentle with yourself, and open up sometimes to somebody who might be able to help you, and to a trusted person who can say, yeah, I get it, but I believe in you. And this is me here saying, yeah, I get it. I totally get it. I so get it, but I believe in you, and I think you can do it. And I'm here if you need help. So thank you guys so much. Thank you so much. And this is Ella in the All Writers Welcome Facebook group. And I hope you're having a wonderful day, and hugs and happy writing. Thank you.